so this idea of sort of nationalism that we study, so this is, the idea of sort of China standing up, overcoming its century of humiliation, bringing China together. Used to be sort of this loose pan of sand, and he's going to sort of solidify it, and it's going to stand up, sort of make China great again in some ways. So this is something that was discussed a lot, and focuses on a sort of autonomy and self-reliance. So what our interest is around this, and so again, this is one of the chapters in that first part of the book where we look at sort of ideology and how it affects business. We look at a lot of other things, but this is just this one of those chapters. So what we're interested in then is, is the business national in ways that may actually hurt its economic viability? Does this vary based on the extent of sort of socialization and communication into the CCP? So those are some of the questions. And so our sort of supposition is that, if you come up into the CCP during Mao's era, in a variety of other factors that we look at as moderators, that you will have this much deeper sense of nationalism, which will then be displayed in your firm's behaviors. So I'm going to skip over this, but go back to it. So, anyways, so we did this. We looked at this question with, in some ways, three different ways. So we looked at the entrepreneurial data, we looked at the public company data, and we also looked at this in our interviews. And so very simply, and I don't want to go into excruciating detail, there's academic papers on this that I'm happy to send you, but if you think about, there are in some ways like four types of entrepreneurs. So we look at this data that has 20,000, about 5,000 to 6,000 entrepreneurs, 20,000 observations. So one set of those are these entrepreneurs I mentioned that were socialized into the CCP during Mao's era. So probably communicated much more, sort of these, Mao type ideas. Another type, still CCP members, but actually enter the party after reform and opening, when maybe, the sort of explicit focus on Mao's ideas are not as much. And then there's groups that actually did not join the party, both during Mao's era and then not. So, we're interested in how these four different type of entrepreneurs may run their firms in different ways. And this is something where we can control for industry, even their age. These are very detailed and robust econometric models, and so what we find is that, if you are one of these folks that joined the CCP during Mao's era, there's a lot of ways in which you act in an anti-foreign way. And I should note that this is something that, we studied this in a time period when actually the Chinese government was explicitly encouraging firms to be global, go out. The provincial city government was incredibly focused on GDP. And so, these entrepreneurs in their daily environment have a lot of encouragement to actually, be foreign. But what we find in all of these different data sources that they actually, are much less likely to invest abroad, and also much less likely to do a variety of other things like accept foreign investment, which we sort of take as evidence that, they have been, their sort of, propensity to do so is reduced. I should say, so this, I skipped over this. This actually is found in our interviews. In the book we have the interview schedule we did. You can look at the different questions. There's a lot of questions that we looked at, and generally as well, when we look through the interview transcripts, even the words and phrases that were used were different. things like much more likely to use self-reliance, autonomy, independence. We also analyzed of the public company firms, the public statements of those CEOs. So, if you're a CEO of a public company and you are, again, one of these like deep red, you also are emphasizing these same ideas. I'll skip over that. Okay. I mean, this is important, I think, because, nationalism has only increased. It's being, sort of stoked in some ways by the government. And I think that, there's this well of it. And I also think, one of the reasons why I think this is important to understand is that, there is this also discourse in the West, and I think it is from wishful thinking a bit, that, a lot of the, sort of messaging around, or promotion of the CCP ideas by entrepreneurs is mainly, just a display. Like they have to do this to be legitimate. And there was this article on Foreign Affairs not that long ago by Kevin Rudd, who you probably know. He was the Prime Minister of Australia for a while. He's now the Australian ambassador to the U.S. Speaks good Chinese and has studied China a lot. And so he even said in this article, he said, the point of the article was that actually, Xi Jinping's taking a third term is like a step change in governance in China. And he was saying that, okay, when you would talk to officials, they would talk about, their commitment to the party, but he was like, oh, it was, this sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like they didn't actually believe it. But our results suggest that actually there are very deep beliefs and commitment to those ideas among these individuals, and it's not just display. Another sort of quick story of mine that really, again, sort of, was when I started going to China or living in China a bit. I again was not a traditionally trained China scholar, but I was at the time. So I was for 12 years a professor at Harvard, both at the business school and the Kennedy School, so I could get very good access to leaders, to interview them, to do case studies. And so I had gone one day early in my time, so probably 2011 or 2012, to the office of the CEO of Costco, which is a major Chinese shipping company, and walk into his office, and right there, sort of in my face is this giant statue of Mao with, the flag of the CCP and the flag of the state flag of China. And this was, again, I mean, this was sort of early in my time going there. It's like my students, I was a little puzzled. I mean, is this something that's just a display that, he needs to actually do this to, sort of in some ways fit in, sort of socially and it's legitimate, but actually, what our findings suggest is that there is, because these individuals are actually operating their businesses differently, that actually these are ideas that have stuck in some way.